So earlier I was discussing brands, and hi, how are you? I keep forgetting that this is what I have to do. So earlier I was discussing brands and the importance of brands and stuff like this. So I figured I might talk about archetypes for a bit. And let me just dive deeper. First, let me just open the internet. Yeah, we're running on data these days. Yay, branding. All right, so I'm back. I had to open a website because I wanted to talk about this differently. So, welcome for whoever's here. And we are discussing right now archetypes in our modern economy and society. And how, personally, if we represent one, then we'll be able to kind of explore the world in a more oriented way. So the archetypes are split into like more of the spiritual stuff, the providers, the pursuers, the legacy, and the spiritual. So there are like these are the four splits. There are more archetypes. I don't know if anyone's heard of Carl Jung. That guy's badass. I'm scared to read his books, in all honesty, but I've read a lot about his concepts, and my goal is to kind of level up slowly in order for me to be able to like handle. Because when I read something, I actually like try to implement it with myself and understand it properly. And his books are heavy because he spent a lot of his own time just exploring how deep his own shit could be in order for himself to kind of understand the psyche and how it's related to everything else. Guy was badass. But so when we're approaching people, we always kind of have a vibe around us. There's always that sense of style that is represented by our nature. We can't deny that. And if you look at companies these days, they're basically doing the same thing. They're applying these archetypes. Ever since the 1970s, I forgot the guy who actually did that. But I think a guy wrote a book specifically about them, taking excerpts from like Carl Jung and representing them through myths. So and every good story has almost all the archetypes. It kind of has the hero, it has the wise old man, it has the one exploring. Uh, what's it called? It has the evil villain. It has the creator. It has the master. It has like the innocent people. It has like the jokers. It has like the everyman. It has like the sensual ones. All these. And if you look at Harry Potter, if you look at what's their name, Lord of the Rings, uh, I don't know, Avengers, and all of them are kind of like pretentious heroes. No, like proper stories that flow. These are stories that have like true characters that represent something. Like Frodo had to go and like search for the rings, so he's the explorer, and then there's the wise man. There's the evil on the other side, and then there's the king, and then there's the. All of these are just as we grow up, we notice them around us. As we grow up, they exist around us in different forms. There's an archetype for the mother, there's an archetype for the father, there's an archetype for the fun uncle, there's an archetype for the like depressed. All of these are archetypes. But the true archetypes that kind of like the world engages with are 12 so far because they kind of like compartmentalize a whole lot of different aspects of different pieces. Uh, there's the rebel, and these are basically represented by how people engage with the world. There's the magician slash trickster. There's the hero, the one that's always protecting and saving. You can see them around you. Like some people are always like taking the realm, being leaders. They are the heroes. Some people are always kind of like trying to entertain. And they could be either magicians, they can either be jesters, or they could be like, I don't know, like sages. They can entertain with words, or they can just entertain by like providing like direction, knowledge to their subjects. There's also like the lover archetype, which is more of an intimacy kind of approach, where like, don't worry, you're loved, I'll take care of you. And I think that's also nurturing. You can also find that, and like there's the caregiver that's also nurturing. And I don't know, man, who else could be nurturing? There's the friendliness that I'm there for you, like the everyday man, like the sense of belonging kind of gives it something, that pursuing connection. There's There's the ruler, as in like the boss, the badass, and all of us have that one person in the group that kind of like is stubborn in a way or charismatic in a way that kind of like establishes something. There's the explorer, there's the sage, there's the innocent. These people are kind of like in a spiritual way, kind of like naive or just looking at the world in their own sense of self, right? All of these are specific like approaches we have to people. All of these are engagements that we kind of like represent on a day-to-day basis. To look at yourself and you go like, no, who am I? What kind of person am I? It's a bit it really takes for you to kind of like have to sit with yourself and you go like, what are my values? What is the vision that I have for myself or for what I want to do? You have to kind of like structure these things. What are the goals that I would want, that I would set in order to reach my visions? What are my principles that I can't go away from them? As you set all these things, you kind of like build within yourself, you kind of like form an understanding of how your character operates. And that's practically your own brand shining through you. And then you look at yourself and be like, I'm the kind of guy who takes risks. Okay, so maybe you're an explorer, maybe you're a rebel, maybe you're a bit more of a hero because you want to save people, maybe you're a bit more of a creator because you're willing to kind of like innovate and like look at all this kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe you look at yourself and you're like, I'm just the kind of guy who wants to like support in the community. So like maybe you're one of those belonging types, like the everyman. Or maybe you're also like a hero because in a leadership way you kind of work but within yourself. Or maybe you're working to become more of a like understanding kind of guy that wants to like have people unite together and feel some kind of thing. You can switch, like the same words kind of like apply to different things, but ultimately the more we understand of what we want to do, the more we understand of who we are. And because it's our behavior that engages with us on a daily basis, it's our behavior that kind of like triggers our movement and changes. It's the day-to-day things that you kind of like pursue that form who you are in the real world. Remember, our ego is buildable. So it's all about the vision that I have to myself in this life. Like, what do I want to be doing? And that's basically where you go. That's basically how you approach it. That's basically who you engage with. And every step of the way, your process is always to figure out, am I getting closer? Am I not getting closer? Am I doing something? Am I enjoying? Am I not enjoying? All these, like, I left 9 years and 10 months in a country specifically because I looked at myself and I was like, this hasn't been fun for a while. The minute I realized that, I decided I'm leaving the country. So whenever you're not having fun, you're not really fully like representing yourself, which means like you're no longer who you are and you're no longer engaged with what you're doing, which means you're kind of like there. And that's not something that would ever go anywhere. It would always be something that sticks where it is, or just kind of like rotates around the certain things that it knows. And I'm using it and something because ultimately, like, what personality you create, if it has life in it, not personality, sorry, what character you create, if it has life in it, what ego you create, because your character is always kind of is built on top of your like principles and values, whilst your personality is built on top of your morals and your understanding of the world. So your ego is basically built on your goals, ambitions, and structures. So what you want to do is you want to kind of like push towards these goals. And you have to have like a strong character through your principles and values in order for you to be able to express your will to the world, in order for you to be able to like creatively implement it, because you have to think in terms of how I would do it. There's nothing, everything that's set already is barely a baseline. It's just random. It's just people kind of like destructuring something all the way to the bare bones for you to feel your way out of it. And then the personality, like the intention behind your own existence, like why am I doing this and what's the purpose behind it? And what are the things that are like being done in order for me to kind of reach where we are? But then the ego is the one that handles everything. It compartmentalizes everything. And then you yourself are the actual brand walking. You're your own brand. You're named. You're an archetype walking in this earth. And you're a person that's kind of like establishing every single piece of your days, supposed to be establishing them, not just like getting them from other people. So as your own personal brand, to understand properly how you are represent, how the other people see you, how the world look at you. Because when they look at you, they're going to find a point of reference. They're going to go like, you remind me of this, or your attitude is this or that. And that's basically how we engage with each other. And it's funny because it kind of, I try to go back to the old days where we still were kind of like Neanderthals. And I wonder how we evolved until now, where we have all these archetypes and we have all these like buried down images and visions in our own subconscious, subconscious, where we relate to certain things. But ultimately, as we grow as kids, like when we wake up, you're looking at your dad, so he's like the power figure, the support, and your mom is the nurturing figure. Maybe the other way around, I have no idea, but like I'd assume like it's easier done this way. So we apply these to our day-to-day activities, and then we use those interactions as we're growing with the archetypes that we're built and we subconsciously have in order to relate to the people around us. And that kind of like our environment dictates our personality because it affects how we see the world. And so as we actually like grow, our environment affects us, affects our ego, build helps in shaping our ego, not our personality, because it affects how we see the world. And as we grow, how we see the world is one thing, but how we show ourselves to the world is something else. And when it comes to the brand, we don't really get to choose the archetype that we have. But ultimately, whether we like to admit it or not, we're always representing something. So might as well understand it and might as well understand what archetype we're representing and hold up to it, maybe hold ourselves accountable, and even in a way try to be a bit more through exploring different kinds of different forms of like expression of what we could be. And I really think that kind of sums up what I'm trying to like talk out loud. It seems like fun. Yeah, your ego is technically the archetype that the world gets to see. So might as well invest properly in it, right?